How many times have you said that you're doing fine when in reality, internally, you feel like you're unraveling? This episode of Conquer the Day is for the career-driven professional who looks like they're doing just fine on the outside, but inside is sick of the pendulum swing that is self-sabotage. If you've ever wondered why you can't get off that pendulum swing and it feels so much harder to be consistent and to take care of yourself than it should be, you're going to see yourself in this conversation. Today, we have the pleasure of having our client, Jessica Lynch, on with us. And Jess has made a remarkable transformation of mind, of body, and of spirit. Even in a crazy season of life where her kids were moving out, where her career was crazy, travel was all over the place, and she had a massive career transition, she still did it. And she has an amazing story to share with you, especially if you have been stuck on that pendulum and you feel like you keep sabotaging yourself. So that said, if you are ready for a breakthrough today, this is the perfect episode to be tuning into. So open your ears, open your heart, and let's jump in. Jessica, welcome to Conquer the Day.
Welcome, welcome.
We are so glad to have you and so excited to jump into your story. So thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, there's so many things for us to dig into, but we want to take a step back in time before you really talk about where you are today. So you think of where you were when you first connected with the team, when you first came into this journey. How would you describe mentally, emotionally, or physically where you were at that time before you started this transformation, before you started this change?
I would say scared, probably. I kind of felt like I was hitting a wall and I was scared of the consequences on the other side. So I recognized something needed to change, but I also felt not only scared, I just felt defeated. Like I didn't even know what else to do, but I knew something had to give. Very lack of confidence. Just super nervous and scared of what was waiting on the other side if I didn't make a change.
And what did it look like from the outside? Like, how did people describe you or your life? Like, what was kind of the persona of Jess?
That was all hidden, right? You know, just super busy, successful. I can do it all. I can juggle it all. So on the outside, I don't think anyone saw it. Of course, my husband, my close friends probably knew because I confided in them. But to the outside world, I looked like I had it all. Traveling international, raising two kids, busy, go, 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 go. You know, the story of very type A personalities, right?
Yes, 100%. And you said that you were feeling more scared of what was coming. So what was actually scary about where you were at, just to kind of pull us into the story of what was actually going on?
Sure. I think, looking back, I was really had a terrible relationship with both food and alcohol. So I would use them both in time of celebration, in time of sadness. It was my go-to all the way around. And so it just wasn't a healthy relationship with either one of them. I would go through periods where, okay, I need to cut back on the drinking. So then I would just eat more sugar or whatever the case may be. But I knew the path could not be sustainable and I didn't like where it was going and would get even worse, maybe become an addiction or something along those lines for both food and alcohol.
Yeah. So when you talk about the fear, the doubt, the desire to make a change, what was the change that you felt you had to make? So you recognized that there was this pattern, this problem, but you're like, okay, I feel like I need to change, but there was a friction. So what did you feel like you had to change? Or what were some of the insights that were like, okay, this is kind of my line in the sand moment where things have to start being different?
I mean, I think everything in my mind was I have to be perfect, right? I have to not drink. I have to eat healthy every meal. I have to work out 5, 6 days a week. Like perfection was the answer. It's the only answer I think I knew. And I think I kept pushing back on that, saying that's not sustainable. It's not reality. Oh, but you really should be doing this, but I don't really want to do this. You know, it was that pendulum swing, like Lindsey mentioned. I often felt like on a roller coaster, all high and then all low, all high and then all low, never in the middle, It was always extremes, good or bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that, and you said it flawlessly because that you could tell because your energy would be on point and you'd be crushing it with workouts, and then you'd be off and then way off for a few months until it got frustrating again.
Yeah,
Right. And
exactly.
start over.
Exactly. And I kind of felt, I followed that path for probably the last 10 years or so. And I would have really good high moments when I was crushing it and everything was aligned. But then when the bottom came really hard.
Yeah. So I have two questions off of that. One is now that you're looking back at that, what was actually the problem, or what wasn't the problem? Because you thought you had to be perfect, but what that probably wasn't the issue, right? So what was actually the problem looking back?
Honestly, I think I didn't know how to live in the in between, in the middle. It was always chasing that next high of happiness and running away from the low. I remember a very critical point that we worked on in the emotion scale and how to just go from one step instead of trying to jump 5 or 10. And I was always going from really low to really high or really high to really low rather than just taking it one step at a time, incremental, progressive change, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And go ahead.
yeah, I felt like I had to move all the way to be
Mhm.
at the top, right?
Yeah, and it shows up that same way when we think of your progress too, right? It's not just an emotional feat, it's a physical feat of I'm crushing it, I'm dialed in, everything's great. And then when you have a dip or a day where things get off track, or my understanding is if you celebrate too hard,
Yep.
right? Like, you really celebrate and then you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ate that way or I drank that much or whatever. That puts you in the valley of despair. And then trying to get back up to the peak feels like such a major leap. And that's where kind of those weeks bleed on where you're not really in the zone. Is that kind of an accurate depiction? Like you do really well, you'd celebrate, and then you'd dip down, and then it'd be hard for you to get back up because the gap was too far? Or...
Yeah, exactly. And I was only shooting for the top. I wasn't enjoying the process of each step to get there. So it definitely felt very difficult because it didn't feel like the steps mattered. It was only the top that we had to get to, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so if you think of the incremental changes that had to happen, what did you learn in that process of removing yourself from the highs and lows and trying to start valuing those incremental changes? What did you learn, or what had to change about your internal dialogue? Like what was going on in your mind to accept like that middle? Walk us through that.
I think it was really starting to identify the emotion around each step and labeling it. That was a really big step for me by saying, you know what? I'm content and that's okay. Understanding that every feeling, every emotion is okay to be in when you're in it. Or if you don't want to be in it, how do you move outside of that? Versus the top of the top, the highest of the high was where I always wanted to live. I wasn't happy anywhere else because I didn't think I was supposed to be. So I think understanding that the contentment or whatever the stage was good. It's what can you learn from this stage that you can grow from?
That is beautiful.
And so, for people who are listening, what Jessica's really describing is that there were certain behaviors that were associated with certain emotions, right? And if you're feeling like a 10 out of 10, things are great, you would overeat, you would drink more, and then that would tend to the self-judgment, self-criticism the next day where you're kind of beating yourself up or you just feel like garbage, right?
Right.
Just the
Right.
physiology effect of that.
Yeah.
And then that would start this process of you not necessarily getting back on track until you got frustrated enough or you had a come to Jesus moment, and then you would start the process again, and then you would get momentum. And that's what kind of led to the pendulum effect of you really not being consistent with taking care of yourself. Is that kind of a clear picture, or just
Yeah,
because...
absolutely. I mean, I think it's to sum it up, I was always chasing that 10 out of 10, not appreciating the 9, the 8, or the 7, right?
Yeah.
Or any of the numbers in between.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll link the actual emotional scale that you're talking about so people can see it for themselves, because it is a really powerful image. Because a lot of times, like, and I used to live in that world too, where I was either super anxious or just jumping and being like I'm joyful, and there was no in between. And when you start to understand that emotions are more like a thermostat, they have to go through each degree, right, in order to get to 70 degrees or 80 degrees, it helps you see that every emotion actually has value, right? It still holds a reward or some type of lesson inside of it, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And then what I'm hearing too, as we move through this, is where it sounds like you were actually getting stuck, because where you mentioned at the beginning is that you were go, 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 busy, 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 doing all the things all the time. And I remember the fear of slowing down.
Oh, yeah. That's, uncomfortable, right? When your world goes 100 miles an hour all the time, you don't know what to expect. Like, what is the nothingness? What is the calm? It can't be the norm, right? It feels very uncomfortable.
Right. And what you actually had to face to get through it were all the emotions in the slowing down,
Right.
which sounds like when you were staying busy, that's actually what you were kind of avoiding dealing with, which I don't know if that's correct, but looking
Oh,
back.
yeah, 100%, right? It was the busyness feels successful, right? Because you feel like you're checking off your checklist, you're getting things done, but you're definitely avoiding the opposite side of that. What does it mean to not be getting things done? Where do I land when I'm just okay? And it's such a big learning experience because on the other side, being in okay with the okay is fantastic.
Mm.
Bet you never thought you'd hear me say that one, right?
And I'm so glad you have. I'm so glad you
Right.
have. There's peace there that
Yeah.
lives in the stillness.
So as you started to have these insights, what did you realize that you really wanted? What was the change that you really wanted? What was the vision? Like where you saw that there was challenges, you saw that you identified that there's some problems, but there's that gap of what does progress or success really look like?
Yeah.
So what did you really want and what was that target you were aiming at?
I think it was, first of all, really being comfortable with the in between, which I had never done before. I didn't understand it. I didn't think it was okay. I felt like I needed always the extremes. Of course, we're going to chase the extreme good, not the extreme bad, but understanding that in between mark is actually very peaceful and can offer a different level of growth and opportunity than when you're on a go, go, go standpoint. I didn't know at the beginning of this journey that I was going to actually look for spiritual growth, but it became a really big part of this growth as well because I finally slowed down enough to like make room for it or to make room for other things in my life that were important to me, which by the way are quiet time now, which I never would have dreamed of in the past, right?
Yeah.
So it was huge. I think it was just taking the time to say, okay, what does that in between look like?
Mm-hmm.
And what can we gain from it for sure.
Yeah. And now where does fitness and health weave into this? Right?
Yeah.
Because that's the question that I think people get stuck in, right? Is they come in and they're like, oh, I can't lose weight or I keep gaining weight back. And that's where you were too, but you knew there
Right.
was something else, which is really what we've been talking about is the something else. But where did fitness and health weave in? What role did that actually play as you started making changes?
The health and fitness was a happiness for me. It's a piece that brought me joy because I felt good just in my body by moving it, by nourishing it. So it became not a goal to lose the weight and it became more of a symptom of everything else. And what I kind of fed to my happiness was by treating my body well, by getting rid of the extremes, just like I was doing with emotions, I was doing extremes with food and alcohol. So to get in that comfortable place, then everything just started to make sense and it became my new norm. It became my expectation of this is what I do in order to feel good or to be in that comfortable zone. Health, nutrition, and morning routine. Those things were staples that I put in place that just became a non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm. Versus what was it in the past? Like, how is that approach that you just described different from what it was beforehand with health and
Yeah,
fitness?
before it was I have to work out, right? I've got to push myself harder and let's do this because it's going to help me lose weight or because I ate too much the night before, so it was punishment, right? Versus now it's just a part of a healthier lifestyle. It's the lifestyle that I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
It,
And
it, it, and when it clicks like so naturally. It doesn't even feel like work after that point in time.
Ooh, when did it click?
Yeah, when did it click?
It was ups and downs there as well. Like I had some moments of clarity, but I think once I realized that I was over celebrating and the cause it was happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, okay, the over celebration always caused me to dip. And once I recognized that, then I was able to make the change to say, okay, let's stop before that over celebration point. I did take 2 months off of alcohol completely to get curious about what that would do.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was an interesting experiment just to see what would happen. But I also found that that wasn't where I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay not in the extreme. I wanted to stay kind of in the middle, just not so dramatic as it was before.
What'd you learn from that? Because even for myself, when I had to rework on my relation, or I had to rework my relationship with food, I went vegan for a month. I went pescatarian. I found that the way I felt during it was not in alignment with my ultimate goal, but it was so helpful to reverse
Right.
the do something totally opposite of what I had been conditioned to do, which allowed me to feel very similar to you, which is all the sensations, all the experiences, understanding more of what was there. So what'd you learn from that experience of just
Two
saying
months.
2 months of not drinking, of really removing that stimulus or experience?
I think honestly, the biggest takeaway I learned is that I'm really fun even without it. You
Yeah.
start to believe that alcohol makes you funner, funnier, whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm actually a really fun person without it. So it was just opening up to that limiting belief, I guess, is what I think about it. It was
Mm-hmm.
just like you said, it was a great experience to get curious about, let's just see what happens. Let's see how I feel.
Mhm.
For the people who hear that and they go, that sounds like a really good idea, but I'm afraid of what people around me would think.
Yes.
I'm afraid of how
Tell us about
people,
Mardi Gras.
afraid of how, afraid of how people will perceive me. I'm afraid of the social pressure, and that could be,
It's a
you know,
lot.
plenty of
Yeah.
food. It could be anything that they're trying to break free from. What advice would you give them for how to maybe approach it while still being social and being yourself? How would they approach it, or what advice would you give there?
First of all, I think one untruth I would say that I had is that it defined me, that people knew me as the drinker, the partier, whatever, right? And honestly, that was just a perception I had of myself. My friends and my family really just know me for who I am. So I would say is you have to get out of your own mind, your own disbelief of what you think it means before you can even approach what other people will do. But once you make a decision and you make a decision, this is what I'm doing, then it's easy because you're just being confident with it. You're not apologizing, you're not making excuses, you're not saying there's something wrong with me because I don't want to partake in what you're doing. It's a decision I have made. I remember Lindsey mentioned Mardi Gras. We went to a big Mardi Gras parade, and there's traditionally a lot of drinking, and I didn't drink there. Well, for that one, I needed something to feel comfortable, so I brought a non-alcoholic drink. I brought an alternative. It worked for me. Doesn't work for everyone else, but for me, it was holding something in my hand. So recognizing that that replacement was a good replacement for that moment was a good win for me.
Amen.
And only even one person even asked me what I was drinking. And I was thinking everyone would be like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
So it's
What
self-belief first.
and then what you said was really key. You made a decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You're not questioning it. You're not defending it, right? You made a decision. This is what I'm doing.
amen.
I hear you guys talk all the time about don't make your spouse be your accountability partner. I would do that a lot. I would tell my husband, hey, can you help me? I don't want to overdo it on the king cake tonight, or I don't want to overdrink. And he's like, I mean, I'm going to be here to be whatever you want to do. But if I said I am not doing this versus asking him to control for me, it was much different.
Mm-hmm.
There was no question. It was a decision.
Mm-hmm. And how did that change, if at all, his response?
Oh, I mean, before, if I was unsure and asking him, he's going to be a pleaser. So he's going to give in to what I want, whether it's yes or no. Versus once I made a decision, we didn't even talk about it again. It was just a done and move on, right?
And beautifully said, yes. I think it gives him a lot more clarity too. I mean,
Yeah.
partners in general, right? Okay, they made a decision. Cool. versus like, how do I navigate this? What do they need? Trying to read us.
And you can see how if someone has an unsupportive partner, then that leads to the next level of growth, right? Where it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the person inherently, but if Lindsey brings something to the table for me and I'm like, oh, but that's really like our favorite thing, and like I was really looking forward to that, and that brings up conflict, well, then that's the next area of growth where, well, now we have to have a vulnerable and open conversation. And I think that the key to everything that you're describing, what we're talking about, is that continuous spotting areas of growth,
building confidence.
Like it's continuing to see, where do I really need to grow and where do I need to continue to either refine the skill or refine the belief or make a decision that I haven't.
Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I will say too, just, being a successful professional, you feel like growth always comes from career-minded things or success rates. And I've done more growth in the last year than I have probably in the last 10 years of my career, because it's growth that means something to me, right? And you get to a point in your life when you're looking for something more, and that same career-minded growth is not always what the answer is. And that was a beautiful thing for me that I've learned. I don't really want to learn a whole lot more about business growth. Not that I won't, but I don't want to. I like growing in other areas. And I never thought that was a true success in the past, but it absolutely is.
Yeah. So this is going to be a good bridge into maybe the thought and mindset side, because what you said before we started recording was the biggest change was of belief was that I can even change my thoughts, change my mindset. And you said that was just the most powerful thing for you. So help us understand how maybe your definition of success changed and how you started speaking to yourself differently. Like, what was this change of thought that you were describing? Beginning.
Yeah, I think I used to believe that if you had a thought in your mind, deep down, no matter how wild it was what you truly believed. So you need to go explore, why are you thinking this very random thought? And so I was almost punishing myself for thinking things that didn't align with what I was doing or trying to do. So when I stopped and realized that, hey, if you want to change your thought, you can acknowledge it, understand it's there, okay. But what would I like to be thinking instead? It's extremely powerful. And what that did was actually help me realize to be calmer, to be more content, and understand that this growth happens in such different areas of your life. I mentioned earlier the spiritual growth, your connection with people. When I realized how important that was for me, if I was thinking something whatever in my mind about my husband, I could change that around and it would give me a different benefit because we would have a deeper connection or whatever the case may be. It was wildly powerful. And I will say, I did a lot of work to learn to change that mindset, but I also opened up my mind and my heart that God can help you change that thought pattern. And once I understood that, I was like, oh, I'm just been fighting this the whole time rather than trying to accept it for reality.
Life-changing. And what was the ripple effect of understanding that you can change your thoughts? And maybe we can talk about how you actually did it too, because people are probably wondering. But what was the ripple effect or the benefit of that?
For me, it was positivity. I had a really negative streak. I would tend to we're problem solvers, so I'm tending to focus on the problem and what needs to be fixed. And I started to lean into gratitude and positivity. And it had a really big just outlook shift on everything. Problems aren't so big of problems anymore when you can find the good in some way, shape, or form, what's surrounding you, right? So for me, that was the big shift from negativity to positivity.
As a default, right?
Yes, as a default mindset, which I had always struggled with, but I thought I wasn't positive because I wasn't happy. I didn't realize it was a choice and you had to work at it. You have to actually work at it if you want to have a positive mindset. Simple things that make such a big impact though.
Yes, because why do you think it was such a struggle before, and how did you actually change it? Because you said I did a lot of work. So what does the work actually look like for the person who's like totally resonating with what you're saying? Like, okay, but how do I be more positive? It feels so fake, for example.
Right. I think for me, it started with morning routine, changing my morning routine. I would typically pick up my phone, and I work for an international company. So I was always reading Slack and email from what they were doing 7 hours ahead. So I was already starting my day behind and
Yes.
fighting problems, right? That was the first thing I did before I even got up and brushed my teeth. I'd reach over, grab my phone, and I'm starting into firefighting mode. I switched that habit and started very simple morning routine. First thing I do is write down 3 things I'm grateful for. Half the time I'm barely awake, so most of the time it's just like sunshine, but it makes you focus on the little things because nothing has happened for the day yet, right? And then I actually would pick a mantra for 90 days and I would write that down every single day. And one of them was everywhere I look, I see miracles,
Oh,
trying
that's
to
beautiful.
find the positive in things. So I just would repeat a mantra for 90 days to help get the mindset right. Then I would go into okay, what are the 3 things I have to do today? It's like 5 minutes, but it makes a huge difference. It just level sets. And then, Lindsay, I took this one from you around work and people I'm with, starting conversations with what are we celebrating, right? Just by starting with what are we celebrating makes such a big difference in the whole tone of everything you're doing, right? Like, so I don't ask my kids at dinner anymore, how was your day? Tell me what went well today. What made you excited today?
Yeah.
And how'd that change their answers?
It's totally different. Everyone's like, or especially at work, they'll say, like, personally or professionally? I'm like, anything. What are we celebrating? And everyone's just a lot lighter, and you're focusing on a positive rather than fix. We'll get to the problems. They're going to always be there. We have fires to put out, but if we can start in a positive, it's such a more open mindset.
Yeah, well, you can see how everyone's kind of hypnotized by the same crappy answers,
Yep.
right? Like, how are you doing? And it just, or when you hear people
You're
say things like,
hypnotized.
"Hey, how's the day going?" Like, "Oh, living the dream." It's like they've rehearsed that script again and again and again over themselves, and so therefore they don't actually have a, let's say, positive outlook or something to celebrate, right?
Right.
So what's great about that question is, even if you think about your kids, or like, think about your kids. I can't imagine my parents ever saying, "Hey, Brian, what'd you learn today?" Or what was great about your day today? It was, "Oh, what happened at school," right?
Right.
A totally different interaction versus what was great about your day. It changes the lens, and now whatever you're focused on, you start feeling, right. So if you focus on things that went well, you see that there's more things that went well versus the negativity bias that we're so conditioned to.
So true.
I think that's
You
very cool.
also, I also found that I got a really stronger connection with people in general
Yeah.
because of how they answer that question, right? Like my kids, for example, my son would say, I met a guy at the gym and I was helping him with a position and then we became friends or whatever. Like that's such a deeper conversation than what happened at school, you know? And same thing with coworkers. They would say something super simple about they celebrated their daughter or son's birthday and you're like, "Oh, well, how old are your kids?" Like the conversation shifts completely
Mhm.
and you also get people connection, which was extremely important for me.
Amen.
Mhm.
And then you start to see that you don't need alcohol to celebrate.
Exactly.
Everything's celebration, right?
Exactly, exactly. And honestly, my family's had some really tough times, extended family, and it's helped me get through those a lot harder by, okay, yes, this is a tough situation, but what can we find good about it? And sometimes that's hard to do, but it just helps you deal with it so much better when the tough things do come up.
Yeah, well, because
Mhm.
your low is still higher,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Your low is even higher than and more stable too. Right? You
Yep.
don't have those huge dips. So I would love to hear from your perspective what you actually feel like you've accomplished. It's been a year. I know you're probably most proud of the mindset change, but how would you describe if you're looking back at your answer to where were you mentally, emotionally, spiritually before to now? How would you describe now?
Oh, I mean, it's huge. It's calm. I would describe myself as calm, and I live in that middle road, and I love it. I never thought I would. Like, I actually don't even enjoy the super highs anymore. They make me very uncomfortable. I love the middle of the road where contentment is extremely great, right? So I'm calmer with the way I approach things at home. You mentioned both my kids moved out in college now. I was nervous about that empty nest syndrome. And it's actually been fantastic because I changed my perspective of now, how can my husband and I learn to live together differently without the kids, right? So that's been super fun. Made a really big career decision because I could live in that calm and really just enjoy the normalcy of life. It's such a plain, it sounds so plain Jane, but it's fantastic, right? It's
And
the
how,
stability
100%.
without the swings. It just feels good. It feels really good.
Saves so much energy.
Right?
how would you describe your health too? How would you describe the changes that you've made physically
Yes.
Oh,
in that
Relationship with
category
food and
too?
alcohol, all that.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just feel better, a lot better every day. I wake up with more energy. I sleep more. I always slept. I thought I slept good, but it wasn't solid sleep. I sleep a lot more, but it's just the calm. I don't get super anxious. I don't get super excited. Not, I mean, sometimes, but not in dramatic ways the way it always was. So my body just feels better, right? If I'm in a workout and sometimes I push and sometimes I'm like, you know what? This is good enough for today. And I'm happy with that.
And I would bet that as a result of even just the way you just described that, you're probably a lot more consistent.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's not so much pressure. It's not so much pressure to be perfect. I still track, how many days I work out. It's very visual for me just because I want to see it and I want to keep myself accountable, but it's no pressure on what I'm doing. Sometimes it's just a walk, sometimes it's weightlifting. I had a back injury, I had to recover from that. But instead of beating myself up over it, I gave myself time and grace to get back on track.
I'm curious, this is kind of a selfish question, but what made this process of coaching work for you? What actually made it work?
Yes.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing. I'm laughing because honestly, the accountability, number one, never giving up, right? When I wanted to give up on myself. But it's the deep level of questions. It's how the difference in a coach and a consultant, right? A coach helps you get there on your own terms, but challenges you, does not give you all the answers. So working with Lindsey in particular, it was the questions and what does that mean? And tell me why you think that. The constant questioning, which made me stop and focus and really answer things to move on and have that growth. There was plenty of times that I wanted to quit, but knowing somebody was in my corner to gently keep pushing me when I needed it was the right attitude. And I think because we focused on not just a number on the scale, not just on reducing drinking, we focused on the whole person. So for me, it worked because that's really where I wanted the help. Yes, of course, I started saying, hey, I want to lose weight, but that wasn't really what was going on. And I think we recognized that from the beginning and shifted the plan and worked on emotional growth and spiritual growth, the other things that I was looking for outside of number on a scale.
Amen. That's a beautiful reflection. I know that Lindsey would be happy about that. But I think that's really key is understanding that the difference between a coach and consultant. A consultant can tell you, here's your blueprint, go do it.
Yeah.
And an actual coach is going to walk with you and help you discover it on your own terms, while also helping to pull out what the facts are too, right? Because some of the things that you come to the table with aren't actually what you want. It's just the conditioned or preconceived notion about what you're supposed to say. And oftentimes it can look different for other people, or it might be that is the goal, but we should have to find a different way there.
Yeah. And I think that you didn't ask me, but if I were thinking of not just what made it work for you, but also the person listening to this who is going to need to take action like you did, massive action, scary action. The things that made it work and made you so successful from my perspective were you just kept coming back to the table. Like you just kept coming back to the table. Like, here are my cards. And you'd be like, hey, I don't want to show you all my cards today. I'd be like, please show me your cards. And you'd be like, okay, here you go. This is actually what I had in my hand. And literally, if I could pinpoint just one thing, it would only be that. And the fact that you valued growth enough and believed that you could grow. That I think those two things together were the reason that you've been so successful with this. But
and I also think too, we talked about like emotional growth and spiritual growth, but I used a lot of the coaching techniques that I was watching you do in my career as well. Like developing other people, or even with my kids, right? Because I'm constantly helping them grow. So it was beneficial in other ways. Like I wanted it to be a part of my life. So I brought it into other ways, tested it out, tried it in those kind of measures as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is enriching overall. And
Absolutely.
not to mention, you ended up losing what, like 25 pounds, 20 pounds?
Yep, 25 pounds. Yep,
which was the goal.
That's outstanding.
Right?
Yep.
So beautiful. Now,
that's the last note.
I know, we're like, and by the way,
you actually
say that at some point.
If you were to talk to the version of you who's at the beginning of this journey, though, if you're sitting there and someone's listening to this and they're at that point where they know they need to make a change, but they're just not sure how to actually get off the pendulum and actually be consistent, what advice would you give to that person who feels stuck or overwhelmed? What would you say to her?
I would say be extremely vulnerable and honest from the beginning. That was really, really hard to do. But if you start with, this is where I am, this is truly where I am, just like you said, Lindsey, showing those cards, then you can get to where you want to be a lot quicker. That was hard. I was in tears that first call. I think a lot of people probably are. But having a safe place to really be vulnerable and put it out there, it's just like the emotion thing. If you name it, okay, now we can address it, right?
Beautiful. Beautifully said. And that's the hardest part. Once you get past that, it does get easier.
Really does. And knowing there was never any judgment. Never any judgment on the other side, no matter how many times I messed up, which also taught me not to judge myself, right? Not to beat myself up. If you're not getting that judgment from your coach, then you're like, oh, well, she didn't think I'm crazy. Okay, we can keep going.
So true. Good. So Jessica, this has been great. And I want to give you a couple quick fire questions that are more personal, if you're
okay.
So the first question I'd have for you is, what are you now working on and loving about this season of life as you made this big career jump, as you're in a whole new season of family? What are you loving and what are you working on?
So I am loving the rebuilding relationship with my husband. Not that there was anything wrong with it. We're just making it grow even more in a new light, right? We laugh about simple things or enjoying that moment. I absolutely love getting closer to him every day. And that's something I want to continue to work on. It's extremely important to me. I also am really enjoying the calm. I said it earlier, but I am enjoying and making time for quiet now. It's part of my schedule. I know that I feel a lot better, whether it's reading a book, whether it's sitting, taking a bath, whether it's just sitting in a room for a little while and having some quiet time. When I don't do that, I kind of get off kilter a little bit. So I always put that right back in. Huge for me. It was very weird, but it's huge. And then started a business, coaching business actually. So we'll see how that goes. But not going all in, just starting part-time right now. I'm like reorganizing my house and things that I want to do, which are bringing me joy in a different way.
Amazing. And lastly, if this chapter of life had a name, what would you call it?
Let me think about this one. Probably steady state. Which is a very positive thing now. A year ago, I would not have said steady state was a positive thing, but it really is.
Beautiful. Love that.
What a beautiful place to be. And Jess, obviously I'm on the outside. I know you did a lot of work with Lindsey, came to our team calls, but it's so beautiful to see where you're at. And I've been on the outside with Lindsey, like, hearing a lot of the insights and growth. And it's really remarkable to see the full circle transformation. So you have so much to be proud of. And what I love about your journey is it's also impacted so many people too. Even if that wasn't your intention, your kids, your family, your coworkers, people you mentor. So really just want to give you positive praise and congratulate you on the continued growth that you're about to continue to have, right? Because it's only the beginning.
Thank you so much. And I'm gonna actually take a moment to thank you guys for having this kind of program together and not giving up, right? Like really staying true to your clients and the push and commitment with no judgment. Without you guys, I wouldn't be here. So I really appreciate that as well.
Pleasure. Real pleasure.
Very much a pleasure. And I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
So amazing work and beautiful share. I think that you did a great job here, just like really sharing the honest truth of what it takes. Right. When you're in that place and you see a vision of, I want to be this positive person who lives in the middle and can enjoy silence, and it's like, this is it, right? This is what it takes, and anybody can do it.
Yeah.
If they want it and if they have that intention. So great work. Thank you for sharing so openly and vulnerably here. I appreciate you.
Of course. Of course.
Awesome.
What I would give people to consider as we wrap it up is that sometimes what you actually need is the thing in the middle, right? What you actually need to accomplish your goal, what you actually need to achieve your goal is the thing in the middle. So maybe take something from this episode and ask, well, if I do want to achieve this outcome, if I actually want to reach my goal, what are some things I haven't tried yet? Maybe there's a different approach there. Maybe some middle ground in your pendulum that you can start to embrace that will allow you to succeed. But we hope this podcast has been helpful. We hope this lesson has been helpful. Lindsey, anything you want to share as we wrap up?
You don't always get what you want, but you always get exactly what you need.
Mick Jagger. We love it.
So from here, again, thank you for joining us, Jess. If you have any questions for her, for us, please do send us a message. Let us know. But we hope this podcast has been valuable for you and that you've gotten some great insights to go implement, whether it's celebrating your wins or giving yourself grace or scheduling time for calm or a few gratitudes in the morning. Take action from this. Go out and conquer your day.
Cheers.